Welcome back to this explainer. Look, today we're taking a radically different approach to a problem literally every single market participant faces. We're going to treat emotional trading not as some kind of character flaw, and definitely not as a lack of willpower, but as a hard, measurable physiological condition. If you've ever watched yourself completely ignore your own trading rules and just wondered, why can't I stop doing this? Well, you're absolutely in the right place.
So, here is our roadmap for today. We're covering the myth of rationality. We'll look at the Low and Repin study, dive into the 3 somatic failure modes, compare novice versus professional physiology, and finally, we'll wrap up with a tactical reset protocol. All right, starting right off with Section 1, the myth of rationality, where we're debunking this whole idea of the perfectly logical trader. We really need to start by completely shattering this myth of the perfectly rational decision maker. The person who just coldly calculates market probabilities without even breaking a sweat. Because honestly, that person just doesn't exist. When you sit down at your terminal, you really have to ask yourself this visceral question. Are you trading the market, or are you trading your ego? Because the exact second a loss means something about your identity, like the moment it feels like a threat to who you aren't executing an edge anymore. You're literally just reacting to a perceived attack. And that brings us to a really foundational concept here, the Somatic Marker Hypothesis. Basically, this is the biological reality that your body physically experiences risk before your brain's logical center even has a chance to process it. The huge takeaway here is that your bad trading decisions, they're actually physical bodily reactions. Your evolutionary system 1 brain, that fast, intuitive, highly emotional center, is just straight up hijacking your logical system 2 prefrontal cortex. So you aren't necessarily making a bad choice on purpose. Your nervous system is simply trying to survive what it thinks is a literal life or death threat. Let's move into Section 2, the Low and Repin study, and look at the actual clinical lab results from live trading sessions.
This is where behavioral finance gets, well, incredibly physical. In the groundbreaking Low and Repin study, researchers strapped professional traders into biofeedback machines and recorded their real-time physiological states during live sessions. They wanted to see exactly what happens under the hood. And just look at the physical chaos in this data. Those massive spikes you're seeing, those are the exact moments where a sharp price break or sudden market event triggered an immediate fight-or-flight response in the trader's nervous system. Their body is reacting to the market in the exact same way it would react if a physical predator just walked into the room. And guys, we aren't talking about vague, I feel kind of stressed feelings here. These are hard, measurable metrics reacting to market volatility in milliseconds. We've got skin conductance tracking the literal sweat on your skin to signal fight or flight arousal. Blood volume pulse is measuring your blood vessels physically constricting under stress. Your heart rate shoots up and your respiration goes completely shallow the very second you face a paper loss. You are biologically changing as the market ticks up and down. It's wild. So what the researchers did was combine those precise physiological readings with daily emotional state surveys, like the UWIS checklist you see here, and they proved a brutal, totally undeniable negative correlation. Traders with the most intense emotional reactions, and that means extreme fear or even extreme euphoria, suffered the absolute worst profit and loss records. So it's confirmed. Unmanaged emotion directly, mathematically, erodes your financial edge. All right, let's jump to Section 3, diagnosing the autonomic hijack by looking at the 3 somatic failure modes. Now that we've seen the lab results, we can diagnose the exact failure modes that force your nervous system to make execution errors. There are precise neurochemical pathways at play here. First up is the FOMO Impulse. This hits like a freight train. It's triggered by a massive dopamine surge when a price just shoots up without you. Your brain literally registers that missed opportunity as a personal failure, which practically forces you to chase the high and enter late with way too much risk. On the exact opposite end is the fear loop. This one is triggered by a sharp cortisol spike when a trade dips into drawdown. Your heart rate explodes, your breathing gets super shallow, and honestly, just to stop the acute physical pain, you completely abandon your plan and panic sell at the absolute bottom. But you know what? The absolute most dangerous loop of all is the tilt spiral. Fueled by anger and this deep, deep loss aversion, a tilt spiral follows an exact, devastating 3-step biological sequence to blow up your account. Step 1. You jump right back into the exact same instrument within 10 minutes of a stop out, with absolutely no valid setup. Step 2, you double your position size because your brain just wants the pain of the loss to go away faster. And step 3, you just completely abandon your daily loss limits. Let's be real. This isn't just poor discipline. This is a fully hijacked nervous system. Moving right along to Section 4, Novice versus Professional Physiology.
or the biological prognosis. So how does the biology of an amateur actually stack up against a seasoned market professional? Because the difference isn't just in their trading strategy, it's literally in their blood vessels and their heartbeat. What separates the pros isn't just a sharper technical edge, it's a physiological trait called high-frequency heart rate variability, or HFHRV. Novices display these massive, chaotic swings in arousal. Their emotional system one just totally steamrolls their logic. But professionals, they exhibit high HFHRV. That basically means their parasympathetic nervous system actively dampens that emotional arousal in real time. It acts like a biological shock absorber, keeping their logical prefrontal cortex online even when the market is going crazy.
And to really highlight how incredibly difficult it is to manage this physiological stress over the long haul, just look at this stat. In 2023, only 25% of actively managed mutual funds actually managed to outperform the market over a 10-year period. I mean, think about that. Even the institutional professionals struggle against the pure biological urge to overtrade and react to stress. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the Tactical Reset Protocol. This is your clinical prescription. Okay, so we can't just wish away millions of years of evolutionary biology, right? We have to use structured, deliberate protocols to actively block that System 1 activation the second we feel it rising. Renowned trading psychologist Dr. Brett Steenbarger prescribes something he calls the mental pause. This is a very specific cognitive behavioral tool to force your brain to hit the brakes. You literally have to train yourself to treat the emotional spiral itself as your signal to stop, not the actual monetary losses. You stop, interrogate your physical state, and ask yourself the hardest question. Is this next trade actually based on my back-tested plan, or is it just a knee-jerk reaction to fear or hope? So what's the immediate fix? If you break a rule, you must force a physical reset. Stop execution immediately. Take your hands off the mouse. Then, drop right into 4-4-4-4 box breathing. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Do this for 2 to 4 solid minutes. Why? Because it literally lowers your cortisol and forces your parasympathetic nervous system to reboot your logical brain. Once you've done that, step away from the screens. And when you do finally come back, reduce your position size by a full tier to lower the emotional stakes for your next setup. But to fix this long term, you also have to address the root cause. Like the legendary trading psychologist Van Tharp taught, you have to actively rewrite your own toxic internal beliefs. You've got to silence that inner perfectionist demanding that you win every single trade. You really have to internalize this belief that losses are merely tuition. They are simply the required everyday cost of doing business in a totally probabilistic environment.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over the next time you sit down at your desk. Take a really hard look at your own trading journal today. Look at your biggest, most painful drawdowns. Were those losses genuinely a failure of your strategy, or were they actually a failure of your physiology? Ask yourself, what is my autonomic nervous system currently costing my portfolio, and am I finally ready to implement the biological reset? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your prefrontal cortex online out there, and I will see you next time.